And welcome to episode 2 of the Redvers Podcast. On today's episode, I break down world news events with a good friend, Steve-O. We chat about a cinema horror story, the Golden State Killer, and how German women have the biggest hands in the world. So stay tuned.
This is the Redvers Podcast.
Well, howdy folks, and welcome to episode 2 of the Redvers Podcast. I am your host, Redvers, aka Justin Gill. And also welcome to all the humanoids, hominids, and I guess any other form of life listening in from wherever you may be in the universe. If you're new to the podcast, which is highly likely, as there is only 2 episodes, welcome. And I hope you're subscribed, and it would be lovely if you could, if you're not already. There'll be a new episode uploaded every Tuesday, and if you would like to subscribe, the easiest way at the moment is probably through my Instagram. I've got a link to the iTunes episode there. My handle for Instagram is @RedversMusic. And just click on the link in the bio and it will take you to the latest episode. I've got a website that's being built at the moment. Should be coming along shortly, I hope. And I'll have all the formats or platforms for the podcast available there, of which the podcast is available at the moment on Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and of course iTunes. Well, I had a pretty busy week this week. I've been working on the podcast all week, doing a lot of editing and sending out a bunch of emails. And this was the last week that I actually start my job at 8 a.m. Before, a couple of months ago, I was starting at 6 a.m. And unfortunately, I have to start again at 6 a.m., which means 4:30 a.m. starts out of bed. So today was a little depressing. I'm recording this on Monday the 30th. I haven't been too tired though. It's been pretty good. But one of the perks of starting at 8 a.m. has been the fact that I've been able to spend a little bit more time with my girlfriend, because where I live, it's quite rural England, I guess. The buses and the trains and stuff aren't the greatest. So starting at 8 a.m. means that, I've been able to get to work on time and still spend more time at her place and stuff like that. And she drove me to work one day last week, and we drove past a field that had a giant Conservative sign on the property. The Conservatives, the Tory party, essentially, because this Thursday there's local elections going on throughout England. And, well, I'm not the biggest fan of the Tory party at all, so we were trying to think of ways that would be best to potentially deface the Conservative sign, because it's a huge sign. And I was thinking, well, the most succinct way, I think, to get your disgust and maybe anger across for people who might be viewing the sign after you is to possibly smear your own shit on it. Bear in mind, this conversation was taking place at about 6:30, 7 a.m. But I thought, for full impact, what you could do, you go there, you go to this place, this little field. You'd have to do it at night time, wouldn't you? Because you can't just do that in the sunlight. Everyone will see you, of course. And have a big meal, like make sure you have a big breakfast, big lunch, big dinner, and then you go to this place at midnight, do your business, put on a rubber glove, and then proceed to rub your fecal matter all over the sign. Not in any sort of formulaic fashion, more of like a Jackson Pollock style, I guess, express yourself. And my girlfriend said, well, to be honest, I was just thinking about writing a couple of profanities on it. And so maybe I went a little overboard with my suggestion. Not that I've ever done this, by the way. I've never smeared my own feces on a sign or anything, because it's pretty extreme behaviour. And if that does start to happen around England on Conservative signs, I've got nothing to do with it, man, okay? Well, back to today's podcast. I sat down with one of my good friends, Steve, whose last name he doesn't really want it mentioned, but not at the moment anyway. I'm sure he will as time goes on. But on Saturday we sat down and had a chat. The story behind Steve and I is we work together. Currently we work in a factory, and we're on opposite shifts. So I'm on in the daytime and he's on in the evenings. And that usually meant that we'd have 5 minutes or so to catch up before the change of shift, and then, I'd head off home. And usually in those 5-minute periods, Steve and I had sort of run through a gamut of subjects, and then off we went. So when I said that I was going to start the podcast, Steve said it could be a good idea if we have our conversation sort of long form. And that's what today's going to be. And it's going to be a regular thing, I think, this format. I want to do a podcast with Steve. We're going to call it the World News Breakdown every fortnight, so every second episode. And the episodes in between, of course, are going to be interviews, which I'll be conducting with various people. So this is the World News Breakdown with Steve. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll chat to you quickly afterwards.
Broadcasting live from HQ in London, this is the fucking World News Breakdown with Redvers and Steve.
And we're rolling. I'm here with Steve-O. Do you want me to say your last name?
Not really.
I didn't think you would, because I will have done an introduction to this. I'll record one tomorrow, so that's good that I know that I shouldn't use your last name. I wasn't going to anyway. I've been thinking about it through the week, and I know you're not in the mood for any stalkers banging your door down. But so this is the World News Breakdown, and also tomorrow I will have recorded the little intro tune. So sadly I can't play it for you now. I wanted to, because it
would have been nice if I'd known what it sounded like, but hey, I trust you just. It's
going to be... I was thinking of downloading the sound of typewriters and Morse code, and have like an office scene in the sound. So it's like someone's in an office, so like an old BBC thing.
Not BBC, anything but BBC.
But like old, like wartime.
Yeah.
And welcome to, something like that, with a bit of compression. And so that's what it's going to be. Well, before we get into some of the articles that I'd like to cover, is there anything you want to cover first?
Anything I want to cover first? Well, you know how this generally goes, where we both start interjecting and we don't read from a sheet at all. So I'll let you start off and we'll just see where it goes from there.
Sweet as. Well, if that's the case, I read this article this morning. This is via The Guardian. I woke up really early this morning, and as I always do, and I was lying there and I thought, well, okay, I can't get back to sleep, because you know when you can't get back to sleep. And I started to read some news, and this article came up.
It's obviously a funny one. Go for it.
It's a very funny one. And the thing is, my GF was next to me, my girlfriend. She was asleep. And
Stop laughing.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I was laughing so hard that I was sort of shaking. I thought, oh, Christ, I better not wake her up. So this was the headline. Children flee cinema after seeing trailer for the year's scariest film. Parents were yelling at the projectionist to stop, says audience member, as teaser for horror film Hereditary is mistakenly aired before Peter Rabbit screening.
Yeah, but that's hilarious, isn't it? I mean, that really is hilarious. Stop the film!
Oh, yeah. Could you picture that? I was laughing very hard. And funnily enough, it happened in Australia. It was in Western Australia.
Oh, that's even better. So the Australians haven't got sense of humour then?
No, well, see, I think they do, because this is not the first time that this has happened. Not with this particular film, but there's a few examples that I'll get to. But I'll read a little bit out because it was quite funny.
Before you go for it, did you have to watch Watership Down when you were at school in Australia?
Watership Down?
Yeah.
What the hell is that about?
It's a film about rabbits.
No.
It was horrific. Seriously, I had to go and watch it at primary school when I was sort of like 10. It's like, why are we being made to watch this? I recommend it if you haven't seen it, just go for it, man. But I'm sorry to have interrupted.
What's it about?
It's about warring rabbits.
Oh, right. No, I remember having to... I don't remember any films I had to watch in primary school, but I remember having to read a few things, and I wasn't a big reader back then, of course, because apparently I had the attention span of a housefly.
Yeah, sounds about right.
The Rats of Nim.
The Rats of Nim.
And I don't really remember it, but I do remember, because I've got an extremely vivid imagination, I think they lived amongst the grass, these rats, field mice. I mean, someone can correct me on this. This is my memory that's about 2 decades old.
Right.
More than that, actually, because I wasn't 14 in primary school. Yeah, and just picturing like these giant blades of grass, so you're that size, you know, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I love that stuff. But getting back to this terrifying ordeal, I'll quote a little bit of this from The Guardian. Will I get sued if I do that?
I wouldn't have thought so, if it's verbatim.
Okay. So, families were forced to flee an Australian cinema when a trailer for a horror film dubbed the year's scariest film was accidentally shown before a school holidays showing of Peter Rabbit. WA Today reports that the incident occurred... there's a lot of errors on here, actually, I remembered this morning. The incident occurred on an Anzac Day holiday screening for the Beatrix Potter adaptation at Event Cinemas in Innaloo, Perth. As audience members settled down for the film, a trailer for Hereditary began to play. The film stars Toni Collette. It's received MA 15+ rating, which is an Australian rating in Australia, for themes of strong horror. Its trailer features a number of unsettling scenes, including one in which a child appears to cut the head off a dead pigeon with a pair of scissors.
How much would you pay to be sat in that audience, knowing it was going to happen as well?
It would have been incredible to see. I wish I was there. And this is in quotes, this one. It was dreadful. Very quickly you could tell that this was not a kids' film, an audience member told the newspaper. Parents were yelling at the projectionists to stop covering their kids' eyes. Parents were yelling at the projectionist to stop covering their kids' eyes and ears. Yeah. Some parents fled the cinema with kids in tow. Now, that's ridiculous. I mean, the implications of that, though, like people... There is a big argument at the moment, like are children sort of being not being disciplined, so the way that we were by our parents.
Absolutely, mate.
And it's like, well, would you cover your kids' eyes if this trailer came on? I mean, I watched the trailer, and I mean, admittedly, I do get fucking terrified by horror films, which is sort of embarrassing, especially being 6'2" and about 200 pounds. I'm terrified by them.
Psychological threat, that's all it is.
Well, Kat and I went to see one, and I think it's because my imagination's so vivid, and I know a lot of people who claim to have had paranormal experiences, and we saw one film here at the brewery. I can't remember what it was called, but it was fucking scary, and I was sat back in the chair, like, terrified.
Was it La La Land?
No.
Right.
No, I would have been crying if I'd remained in the cinema after 20 minutes of watching it. But, and I looked around and no one else was as scared as me. I thought, what the fuck's wrong with me? And then we got back to Kat's place and the hallway, they've got like a long hallway and then a little couple of stairs that lead up to her room. And I had to use the toilet, so I was like, oh, fuck. It means I've got to walk down the dark hall. I didn't do it.
You didn't do it. The Omen. That's the only film that truly scared me.
The Omen, yeah. Is that with the little kid? Damien.
Yes, Damien, yeah. But I watched that when I was 11 years old on a black and white television on a windy night on my own.
Yeah, well, that's insane. There's no freaking way I would do that. And the funny thing is, when I was reading this article, I recalled a thing about the film Peter Rabbit, which is what, as I went through...
I can't believe Australians are interested in Peter Rabbit. That's narrated by James Corden.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right. Peter Rabbit's big everywhere.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it big in Japan?
Huge. Fucking massive. Oh, you already knew that, didn't you? Yeah.
We live in the Lake District, man. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it jogged my memory because when Peter Rabbit came out, there was controversy about Peter Rabbit, which is a freaking cartoon. I don't know how there can be controversy around it. But it ties into the idea that maybe kids are sort of treated a little bit too soft, maybe, these days.
Come on. I mean, that's absolutely true.
It is. I think it's true.
And it's leading to, as you said before, it's leading to a lot of problems when it comes to even taking your kids to school with teachers. I mean, there's something about the most amount of homeschooled children in 2018, and they were saying it was something like 48,000 now that are homeschooled. And they're frightened because they've been taken out of that school society, that they won't be able to interact with anybody. And it's true.
I do think there is an argument for like the interaction or the requisite for children to interact with.
Yeah, you've got to fall out with people. You've got to know boundaries, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's it. And I mean, I think the guy that shot up the pancake joint naked in the States was homeschooled.
What now? Really?
Yes, seriously. Oh, someone told me that yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's right. So things start to
it's not looking
become
good for
clear. No, it isn't really, is it? No more pancake shops.
Well, with the controversy surrounding Peter Rabbit, I found this article because I remembered hearing it on the radio, and I think we heard it when we were on the same shift and we were both disgusted. And this is via The Independent. Peter Rabbit film facing boycott over controversial food allergy bullying scene. And I remembered what the scene was, so I'll get into this. It says here, numerous groups comprised of allergy sufferers are calling for a boycott due to a scene which reportedly shows a gang of bunnies attacking the nephew of the lead character's nemesis, Mr. McGregor, with blackberries in the knowledge he is allergic to them.
I don't know, just, man. They're just getting more and more ridiculous the more you read.
Isn't that
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon, exactly. And, what the hell's going on? If it's getting to that, that's unbelievable. I mean...
But I think it's already got to that, and it's going beyond that as well.
Yeah, you might be right.
I went to Asda before to get some money out.
Yeah.
Unattended children annoy me. So the woman, the mother's at the till getting the money, and the little girl's pretending to get money from the till I want to use.
Yeah.
So I don't say anything, and then the mother gives me a dirty look.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, why?
Well, I mean, what expression did you have on your face? Maybe she looked at you and
I have that expression on my face that says it all most of the time, don't
disgust.
I? Yeah.
Sheer contempt, I'd say, for humanity. Well, I'll carry on with this because it is quite funny. I found it very funny, actually, but especially the names of some of these groups that were sort of asking for boycott of Peter Rabbit.
Self-appointed groups of mumsies, probably down south, probably in London, you know.
I don't know, I'd have to look up the origins of these. Maybe it was. So one such group called Global Anaphylaxis Awareness and Inclusivity.
Well, how many people are members of that?
I'd like
11.
Do you reckon they've got like a monthly newsletter that goes around?
Probably not, no.
A bi-monthly?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they've demanded an apology.
From whom?
From the film's distributor. I'm reading this, I'm not just rattling this off the top of my head, that would be impressive. They've demanded an apology from the film's distributor Sony Pictures, stating the film mocks the seriousness of allergic disease and is heartbreakingly disrespectful to the families of those that have lost a loved one to anaphylaxis.
This is an adult interpretation of a children's cartoon. Just take the adults away from the audience completely.
Yeah, because I mean, who the hell, as an adult, I mean, it might be a good little film. I'm not going to go see that. Why would an adult want to sit through that?
Well, you've got to take your children to the cinema, I suppose, or you could have a children's cinema club where adults are excluded.
Yeah. I remember one of them that we used to go on holidays to a place called Bowral that was in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. And it's a nice area. Like, it's very pretty, sort of rural, kind of like here, actually.
Camping?
No, we used to stay in a...
Five-star hotel?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, nothing less.
No.
What did you expect? And, yeah, I remember, the parents would go off for dinner and stuff, and we'd be left in with the children's club, and you just watch little films. And I remember we watched Never-Ending Story with that big moth. He's riding the
God's
moth.
sake, they have some rubbish films in Australia, don't they?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that had been out for quite a while.
How old were you?
Oh, God, I was a kid. I must have only been about...
I think it came out in 1984.
7 or 8.
Right.
Thereabouts. 1984.
I think so, yeah.
Shit. Well, that's pretty poor that they were showing, a film over 10 years old. Yeah, so they're the two articles that I found quite funny. There was a third one that was fairly comedic. I don't have the article in front of me. Well, it's not really comedic, it's quite controversial at the moment. I guess probably more so in the US. How The Simpsons have been branded, and they're like racially...
Because of Apu's
stereotyping.
voice?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's taken an awful amount, a long, long time before they've actually cottoned on to this.
It's been out now for 20 years, isn't it? I was going to say the Barts, The Simpsons.
Yeah, but I mean, the PC Brigade are on every continent, aren't they?
Yeah, I think...
I mean, as is he a Pakistani gentleman or an Indian gentleman?
Apu.
Yes.
Indian. Yeah.
Would you be offended?
If I was Indian?
With the voice?
Oh, well, as a white Australian, no, not at all.
I wasn't mean as a white Australian. I mean, because you like to submerge yourself in horror films and probably other people as well. You could always go from that angle.
Well, no. I mean, if I've got the same personality as I do now, of course not, because it's comedy. It's a bloody cartoon. And see, the thing is, this controversy all came about because a young Indian American comedian made a documentary on like racial stereotypes and stuff, and Apu was mentioned, I think, in this film. So that's where the controversy started. And so what happened was the Simpsons writers dedicated a little portion of like one episode where racial stereotyping was brought up, and like Lisa was involved in it and was like the voice of reason and stuff.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the episode, so that's where it all came from. But they kind of apologised through the episode, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But there seems to be a lot of people at the moment having to make a lot of apologies.
Oh yeah.
For what was yesterday, it didn't matter.
Well, look at the Home Secretary.
Absolutely relevant.
Apologising again this morning.
What, for Windrush again?
Well, yeah, because again this morning it's come out that she did know information that she said she didn't.
What's wrong with them?
Well, it's a cover-up. They're just trying to cover it all up, and they're being caught red-faced. If she doesn't go...
I was going to say, how many times can you actually apologise before an apology isn't good enough?
5 times so far.
Right.
And apparently she's going to speak in the House of Commons on Monday, I think, or
and she'd just be pilloried by the Labour benches, everybody shouting, order, order. That bloke was going crackers to the day.
Burkow, yeah. He's a pretty interesting fellow.
Yeah.
He seems like he's very intelligent. Like, the way that he's extremely articulate, but the way that his language just flows.
He said to one of the MPs, he said, I went to university with you. You know, so you know that he is obviously very well educated, but he's come through the ranks again. You know, it's establishment jobs. Yeah,
Mr. Burkow. He apparently was treating his aides and stuff, like swearing at them and stuff. Did you read about that?
No,
because a few people were saying, "Oh, well, it was quite a controversy about 3 or 4 weeks ago." and he was apparently mistreating aides, or that doesn't sound.
Are we talking about staff?
Staff, yeah.
He's got staff.
Yeah,
staff.
Right. Well, you would, wouldn't you? I mean,
I don't know, Justin. What are they going to do for me that I can't do for myself?
They'd probably get like reading, like just documents and stuff.
Oh,
like,
you mean work staff?
Yeah.
Not home staff.
Oh no, yeah, at work. So he was like swearing at them and sort of being rude and like, "What the fuck is this book?" Or
I'm not surprised if you'd seen that day in the Houses of Parliament. I'd be in a bad mood, and so would you.
Just being there, I think I'd probably put me in a bad mood. But I can't remember where we were going with this.
Which one?
Talking about the politics and then... a poo, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about... But we do go off on a tangent.
Yeah, divergent thoughts or divergent thinking.
I don't know, Justin. I mean, it's 2018. Mm-hmm. The majority of people are being treated, and I suppose, better than they ever have done before in the history of man.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
I mean, I know that there's wars going on, but if we're just talking about racism, it seems to be so prevalent at the moment. It's 2018, and it's racism, every other word.
Yeah, well, I guess it's an issue that's never really disappeared.
It can't disappear because some people's views will never change.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we are sat here in this little town, like, as you know, that place where there used to be a main dock for slave ships.
Yeah, Arnside.
Just near Arnside, Sandside. Yeah, that used to be a main dock for the north for distributing all for slave ships from Africa. Fucking unbelievable. I don't know about the Caribbean, but that would be some history sort of locally there that I'd like to find out about.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin.
But it's crazy. Like when I'm at Cat's Place sometimes, I stand down on the promenade there in Grange, and you look out and you think, Jesus, like a couple of 100 years ago, you would have seen bloody slave ships going back and forth. Fucking crazy.
Well, it's quite impressive, is Grange, when you think about some of the architecture that's there.
Oh, right, yeah.
Some
of the buildings. It is, yeah. It's a nice little spot. I like it there. Especially, we go for a walk over the hill.
You must be the quickest walkers there.
Oh, we are, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People sort of stop what they're doing and watch us go down the street. It's like I remember those days of functioning hips. Yeah, but no, it's nice. And then you got to Cartmel. So we walk over to the little fell there. I can't remember the bloody name of the fell. And then you see the little valley down to Cartmel.
It's catching up. Cartmel's catching up now with the lakes when it comes to exclusivity. Let's be honest. Yeah. You've got Longclume that's there now, especially as well. There's obviously money about.
There's a shitload of money there. I've spoken to a few locals who lived in Cartmel, who now, well, as I said, lived in Cartmel. They live still in that area, but they don't. They moved out of Cartmel because they reckon that's it. It's gone to the dogs, sort of thing. With the rich set just coming in, buying up property, going out for the weekend in their
It's the world over, man.
Yeah, going out in their GT3s for a quick bite at bloody Longclume.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. I mean, but I don't live there, I guess. If I could afford it, why wouldn't you? I'd go ape shit.
Because you know, just because you've got money doesn't necessarily mean you're a better class of person. So you could be going to Longclume, there could be a load of pricks there. You know what I mean? Like shouting and speaking over your table and... I don't know, just, man.
Yeah, actually, when I went to the barber this morning, there was a couple of young lads, two blokes there, sat on the couch. One was going to see the barber, the one was a mate, just waiting for his friend. And he was a loudmouth, like just...
You see?
But, like, just talking really loud and, like, so everyone else could hear.
Yeah, because he wants somebody to interject so that person can slap them down.
Well, no, I think he was just looking for approval.
Approval?
Really.
From you?
No, not me, just the audience.
The audience that had gathered.
And, I mean, he wasn't playing up. This is a barber, there was only one woman working there, and the rest were blokes. And the rest of the room was blokes. So it's like, well, what do you want? Do you want me to pat you on the back for talking really loud about Tinder?
Yeah, but you could have said this to him. You could have confronted him with these thoughts. And he probably would have got a round of applause from the rest of the people actually at the barbers.
No, see, but I think because he was talking about football, and as you know, all you English people love football.
We love it, man. It's like I've got a tattoo.
So I think he had a lot of the audience on the side. See, so it probably wouldn't have been.
And what team was he supporting?
No idea. Right. I wasn't listening. So
you were listening?
No, I was like, oh, that's loud. That's a loud noise. What's that? Some little twonk down there. Yeah. But, no, another article I wanted to talk about, which is fascinating. I told you about it yesterday, I think.
In depth?
Not really in depth. About the Golden State Killer, which is that serial killer that's just been caught. I'll read the headline. This is via Ars Technica, which is like I think it's like tech mainly.
What, an American newspaper?
Online rag,
right.
Yeah. But it's quite good. Genealogy websites identified rape suspect who eluded police for 40 years. Match came after finding relatives' DNA on commercial service, news reports say. And there's a picture of him, and he looks... I don't even know what you could say.
I like the word eluded, but only when it,
when it's for something good.
When it's about superheroes or something like that. But it makes him sound like he's been clever.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's an interesting point, because he has evaded police for how long?
Evaded?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll read this little bit out, because I found this story fascinating, especially when you get into sort of the second half of it. For more than 4 decades, a suspect in more than 50 extremely sadistic rapes and 12 murders eluded police in Northern California. On Tuesday, he was arrested after investigators tracked him down using online genealogical databases that contained genetic information from a relative, news organisations reported Thursday. So they've identified this bloke. He's a 72-year-old. His name's Joseph James D'Angelo. So they've identified him as the East Area Rapist, which is the nickname that this dude had back in the day.
It brings one question to the fore, though, doesn't it, now? I mean, if he's been inputting his own information onto genealogy sites...
He wasn't, though, no.
He hasn't done. Because I was going to say now, genealogy sites could now be used to aid the services.
Here's the argument. Oh, what do you mean, like
the FBI or the CIA,
Well, this is the thing that people are saying. And, I mean, I was reading some of the comments to this article. I won't read them now because they're kind of similar to what we are going to bring up, I guess. Not that we'll probably agree with it, but people were citing that, well, you've given your DNA to these websites. Maybe people haven't read the fine print and possibly acknowledged or agreed to the fact that their DNA can be used by police, or like as a cross-reference for DNA found at crime sites.
Well, of course they haven't done, have they? They really haven't done. But having said that, I mean, Facebook don't read the terms and conditions. So, I mean, what do you expect from a single person?
Yeah, but the thing is, they've just found a guy who's, allegedly committed 50 rapes and 12 murders.
And when you say just found him, they might have not missed... They love to... The Americans love to put on a big show, don't they? Like 1,800 FBI agents arresting this bloke who's 72 in a wheelchair.
1,800?
No, there wasn't really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, I think, because it's such an interesting story. But I guess it is the land of Hollywood. But it is interesting because, I mean, if my DNA was used to cross-reference DNA found at a bloody crime scene and they end up catching the bloke, I couldn't give a shit that my potential privacy's been... It's your DNA. Like, what do you know about your DNA? Draw it for me. It's like...
It's a fair point, but again, if you don't... You've got to give people 100% information for them to be able to make the decision.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I would assume, though, that this has been... this case has sort of been... has gone through a fine-tooth comb. Because they wouldn't have announced this.
No, absolutely not. It had to be 100%.
Yeah, so I would assume that everything's ironclad on that side. But the case was fascinating, and I thought to myself, that's like that's a movie.
Of course, yes,
and
absolutely.
then I read that HBO have optioned it. So,
already?
Yeah, they're going to make it.
Bloody hell, quicker HBO.
Oh, they're on it. HBO's fantastic.
Yes, it is. The Wire.
The Wire, The Sopranos. But see, the plot thickens with this story because there was a lady, a writer, her name was Michelle McNamara. She died not that long ago, I think a couple of years ago, and she was working on a book sort of investigating the cold case of the Golden State Killer. Now, oddly enough, she'd been working on this for a couple of years, I think. I mean, don't quote me on that because I haven't got my bullet points here, which is annoying.
I didn't think you like to use bullet points anymore.
They've got to be blanks.
Right, okay.
The book's called I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and her husband is a famous American comedian, Patton Oswalt. You'd probably recognise his face. I'll show you after this. On Tuesday this week, he was in Chicago at an event to promote the book that his wife... Well, they're posthumously releasing the book about the Golden State Killer, right? It's called I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Right.
And he was saying to the crowd that he believes that the killer would soon be caught because time's going to run out, because of whatever, technology, or they'll just eventually find him. Because I assume that the book, and people are saying this, that the book almost leads to potentially the guy who committed, who they've caught.
I'm sorry, Just. I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but this all sounds extremely convenient, doesn't it?
It would be one hell of a PR campaign.
Book deal, catch, series. It's that simple.
No, well, see, this is the thing. He was in Chicago doing this event, book launch for his wife's book, and 72 hours later...
It's 3 days later, so come on.
Fascinating. Isn't that... If that's... I mean, I assume that there's nothing going on there, because that's just so bloody elaborate. Not even Dan Brown could fucking write that shit down. But that's fascinating. When I read that, I was like, you're kidding. Like, that's just... It's like the universe.
Absolutely, focusing at one point and going, boom, there you go.
Yeah, unbelievable. And so you can imagine the book now is going to be just selling off the
You see, I'm looking forward now to Tuesday. You know why?
They might have found the killer.
Because it's 72 hours from now. Who knows what the next thing will come out, HBO-wise.
I was just about to say, it made me think of you through the week. Not the fact that someone's been murdered. I don't think that you're a murderer. Because you want to be a writer, or you want to write. And how fucking cool would it be to do cold case investigation and maybe not sort of factually going down the road of trying to solve crimes, but to use certain crimes as... I mean,
you're talking about investigative journalism, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which sadly the country no longer has. It'd probably be nice to go back to the old-fashioned values of being a journalist, just to be honest with you.
Yeah. Like the intro that will occur
for
this. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. But no, I was amazed at that story. It blew me away. I was having lunch yesterday, and just that weird web of interwoven bloody relationships throughout the world.
There was going off on a tangent, a certain person that we know who's been away in Israel, and we knew that things would happen.
Oh, right.
There was a flash flood. 9 people were killed in Israel.
What part of Israel?
I don't know. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm just thinking, bad luck follows him around everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
Just ask David Duchovny. That would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
That really would.
Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, Israel. I mean, I don't have much to say about Israel at the moment.
I don't know a great deal about Israel, Just.
Either do I. There's obviously always a lot going on there.
Yes.
I guess that's for another podcast. We don't want to be aligned with the Labour Party.
No, we don't.
The things that we might say about the Israeli government.
I don't think we'd ever say anything that anybody could ever pull us up on, really, Just.
Well, I mean, we're certainly not anti-Semitic, that's for sure. So that's comforting for any listeners out there who might be Jewish. And I hope there is, because, that means that this podcast has actually been listened to by humans, which would be nice. But no, essentially that's they're the news articles that I wanted to talk about. What did you want to talk about?
Well, you see, because you caught me off guard, I haven't brought my pad with us.
Good.
What do you mean, good?
See, I'm banging my knee for people who aren't in the room. I wish it was a table. I wouldn't bang this table because the recording device is on the table, and it will cause a thump. But there was one other thing I wanted to talk about, actually. North Korea.
North and South Korea.
We could just be saying Korea.
We could be, couldn't we?
That's what they want.
Maybe in 72 hours.
It could be 72 hours. If it is 72 hours...
It'll be a wonderful podcast.
You'll wake up and your bloody pants will be blown off just because you're so surprised.
Oh, as I said to you, the news article with Trump and Merkel, and she was having to agree with an awful lot that he was saying was going to actually happen.
Yeah.
But he seems to be... I know it'll upset a lot of people. He seems to be the main man at the moment, apart from the stage protests that are going to happen in this country when he comes to visit.
Ah, yes.
Because we don't show an American president any respect at all.
Yeah, I did want to talk about that, actually, because there's obviously a huge push to protest his coming.
By whom? The people that didn't like Peter Rabbit?
Well, the people who didn't like the fact that Peter Rabbit was assaulted with blueberries.
Blackberries,
not blueberries. This country's not exotic enough to grow blueberries.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, I would assume that the people who are going to be organising and attending these rallies will be left of centre in terms of their beliefs, or more liberal than conservative.
I don't know, I've said to friends before, I find the labelling of people ridiculous, to be honest with you, because you've got to be able to know yourself, who you are. Yeah. I'll go and join a golf course. I'm not going to go and join one of their,
A rally?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's a weird thing because, like we were saying yesterday, I don't know what this protest is going to prove. I mean, obviously it will prove that a lot of people don't like Trump.
Well, and when you say a lot from a country the size of America, it's not really going to be a lot, is it?
Oh, a country the size of the UK?
Yeah.
Well, no, probably not. I mean, you've got to buy a train ticket down to London.
Exactly. How much is that?
That's fucking expensive.
Yes, exactly.
£112, as I found out recently. And I had someone try and talk to me, tell me that £112 is not bad.
When you were on the train?
Yeah.
Who brought up the price?
I can't remember. Well, I did. I can't remember who the bloody person was. It might have been last week or the week before. And I was like, the train ticket to get down to London, because I had to renew my Australian passport. And he was like, well, when you think about it, it's not really too bad for the service you get. I thought, what? Are you fucking kidding? It's 2.5 hours away. My sister and I caught the train up to Dad's place when we were back in Australia at Christmas time, from Sydney all the way up to the top of the Blue Mountains.
How many hours are we talking?
2, maybe? Maybe 2 hours 10, I think thereabouts. $7.
That's expensive. If I was on that train, I'd be sort of like that.
I wanted to kick the windows out.
Well, what about that European travel ticket?
Which one?
Something last year at work, I think £160, I think it was, for 3 months travel on a train throughout Europe.
Oh, I got one of them with my cousin. What are they called?
A decently priced ticket.
Yeah. Like hop on, hop off, because you can stipulate how many hop on, hop off, or like stops you want, and it's brilliant. It's an amazing way to travel through Europe. I mean, we stopped off in bloody 6 countries, and it's incredible. I mean, depending on the class of carriage you're in, it can be a little uncomfortable, but
I'm sure you can put up with it, just.
Yeah, there was certainly no complaining out of me. And I was reading at one stage on the train a French newspaper. So obviously I wasn't reading it, I was just looking at the pictures. But I could still gather what was going on, you know. It's like, right, a picture of the president, who I think at the time was, God, not Little Sarkozy. What's the other bloke before? Jacques Chirac.
Yes.
I'm sure it was.
And he was a
Chirac.
smallish bloke as well, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right. Well, it runs in their bloody history, doesn't it, of leaders? Napoleonic.
Yeah, but you
like
love
figures.
France, don't you?
I love it. I effing love France, yeah. And for anyone listening to this, I am looking to do a podcast, hopefully 2 in Paris. I want to interview the owners of my favourite cafe in the world.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Good.
Holy Belly. It's fairly new. It's only a couple of years old. So shout out to Holy Belly. Maybe I'll tag them in social media on this so they can
Why
listen to
not?
it. And maybe that'll sort of get me in. But it means that I have to pay to go to Paris. And as we know, that's
Rather expensive.
a little bit more, probably less than a train to friggin' London, actually,
Well, you don't know how the deals work, do
to
you?
fly there. But, and yeah, I'm hoping to also interview a musician, an Australian musician who lives there with his wife. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, no, Trump's 6'2", I think. 6'3".
He's a big unit.
He's a big bloke, yeah.
But, I mean, he's big. I mean, he's not just like Obama, because he was probably about 6'2" as well. He's a unit, isn't he? And I don't know what people say about the size of his hands as well.
Yeah.
I was looking last night when he was shaking Angela Merkel's, and her hands were slightly bigger than his. I didn't see what the problem was. Good German women have big hands.
I wouldn't know. How did you come about that opinion?
It's just, I read about it.
This didn't occur, like, you didn't have a first-hand experience?
No, I was reading it. It was a book
experience.
about gloves.
Yeah.
And they were saying the highest proportion, the biggest gloves in the world are sold in Germany to German women.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What fucking book were you reading that in?
The book of gloves.
Jesus, that sounds terrifying. Oh, Christ, I think it's clipped a bit, the audio. Doesn't matter. I'll be able to fix it. Because I'm wearing a lapel mic, so a lavalier.
What do you mean? What do you mean by clipped?
By clipped, I mean that the sound wave has travelled beyond the microphone's ability to record under 0 decibels, or like 0 dB.
So is that just done by us raising our voices?
Me probably laughing. Yeah, usually you put a lapel mic, depending on the weather conditions, you face it upside down. So sibilance, unlike airbursts, won't cause clipping. But
Right. I'll try not to be
no,
amusing
it's
for the
just me.
next
You haven't.
few minutes.
Yeah. Amusing. Well, I mean, you just revealed to everyone that you once read a book about German gloves.
No, I read a book about German gloves.
But we were talking about North Korea before that.
Well, but we go off on a tangent sometimes.
Yeah. But see,
So is he the way he was speaking last night? I mean, I'm watching a live news feed. It wasn't fake news. It wasn't, a false Donald
that's
Trump
good.
and Angela Merkel. I saw the handshake,
yeah.
and he seemed to be. He said that previous presidents had dodged this issue, and he was fed up with it.
Yeah.
And he said he was so happy with himself that he could literally turn around and stick 2 fingers up at the establishment because he's been able to do what they wouldn't do.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I guess I should preface this by saying I'm not the biggest Trump fan, of course.
I wouldn't say I was a fan, but I haven't
No.
really found... He's not a despot. And this is the reason why I
No.
don't understand why he's... Look, he affects more American lives, I think. There's more American people that dislike him, but we have an American bandwagon that we're having to jump on at the moment.
Yeah, without a doubt. But that is the thing, like, I mean, you jokingly said yesterday maybe Trump's going to be now nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. That's probably not too far from happening. Maybe.
I wasn't joking.
No, see, and people will be fucking shocked and appalled. But they were when Obama won his Nobel Peace Prize. And I didn't research that. I was going to research it last night, so I don't know why he got the Nobel Peace Prize, but...
It's something we can put in the next podcast.
We can nominate it.
Well, no, we can
right.
just find out.
Yeah.
If it'd be the same reason that Trump might get it as well, but he won't get it, will he? Let's be honest about it.
No. But it's fascinating because now, they've agreed to, North and South Korea, they've agreed to denuclearise the entire area. I think this is huge. It's major.
He did say, though, and he reiterated what he said about Japan were helping him out as well. It was the trade
China.
Sanctions, and China, with the trade sanctions that they'd actually put on North Korea.
Yeah.
They said the country was... It didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah. You mean to trade with?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what the hell do they trade from North Korea?
And you'd probably be surprisingly silly things. Gloves to the German market.
Yeah. No, they're probably just, their biggest export is propaganda.
Well, but I had a huge problem with that film that the Americans made about North Korea.
Which one?
I don't know.
The South Park one, was it?
I don't know, just it had Franco in it, that Franco bloke.
Franco?
And James Franco.
Oh, right. Excuse me.
And it was just a piss take of North Korea. And I thought, well, North Koreans are going to see this. And they're going to say, well, why do America think we're like this?
Yeah. Well...
How many Americans reside in North Korea? How many do you think have got businesses there and live there and have a crab shack and things like that?
I don't think you'd find any bloody crab shacks there, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, all you're getting is there was a defector on and she gave us her opinion, but that's just one person, isn't it?
Well, I mean, people do travel there. You can go there. And people do report the fact that it's pretty shit. I mean, a huge percentage of the population are essentially kept down, like below poverty lines and stuff.
So we're catching up very, very quickly in this country.
Well, I was about to say, they must have written the book that the UK has read. Having said that, I mean, it's not a bad place to live. It's certainly no North Korea. We do have nuclear weapons, though.
There you go.
That work. Well, we assume they work. And we have a Prime Minister who said she's more than willing to push the button. They made a big thing about that, didn't they? Fuck. That was a nightmare.
It's a strange thing to be able to say you can do that, without having to think about it.
Yeah. It's weird. And people were having a go at Mr. Corbyn, as we know, for not exactly saying he wouldn't, but not exactly saying that he would.
If I met James Corbyn, I would never like to ask him if he was all right. Are you all right, James?
James Corden.
Jeremy
Corbyn.
Jeremy, sorry, I do. Well, James Corden
and
as
James
well.
Corden, yeah, we know you.
No, we don't like. Right, but Jeremy Corbyn, all right, Jeremy, and he'd be like, he wouldn't know how to answer, would he? Yes, I am. Well, I'm not really. I was thinking, but I wish I'd never asked.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's but politicians have that thing about them, don't they? They don't really
answer a question that's been asked.
Answer a question,
no.
Yeah. They've got amazing ways of being able to wriggle out of them, whilst looking like complete pricks.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's 45 minutes. We're off to the pub.
We certainly are.
For dinner. And, dinner.
I don't know, really. As you said, the burgers are very expensive a little village. Are we a village?
Yeah, this is, it's not a city, that's for sure. Kendall's not a city. Oh, shit,
no,
I said Kendall.
no,
people know where we live.
No, it's Kendall in Indonesia.
Huh?
There's a Kendall in Indonesia.
Oh, yeah, we're in Indonesia. This is coming live. All right, freaks, this concludes the World News Breakdown with Steve, whose last name will remain unknown. This could induce a lot of interest, maybe. If this picks up, what if people try and track you down?
Try and track me down?
Yeah.
I'm not very difficult to find.
Wow.
Just look for a Scottish wild cat.
All right, folks. Peace.
Well, that's it for episode 2, you freak zones. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Steve and I did end up going out to the pub. We went to 3 pubs, in fact, with another good friend of ours. Had a bloody good night and didn't wake up with a hangover, which is always a bonus. If you'd like to get in touch, I definitely would love to hear from you. You might have some questions that you want answered on the World News Breakdown with Steve and I. That'd be great.
anything, philosophy, love, relationships, global warming, you name it. I'm sure we'll give you an intriguing answer to your queries. You can get in touch by emailing me at redverspodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and also YouTube. Leave reviews, comments, questions. They'd all be very helpful. It's apparently good for the program, the way that iTunes and stuff works. Obviously, the more reviews and comments, the higher up the podcast will go in the charts, which would be a wonderful thing, because I'm very keen to keep this going as long as I can. I love doing it. I've really found something that I enjoy, and the podcast is just going to get better as time goes on, and I improve my fucking my feeking skills, my speaking skills. Anyway, folks, that's it for this week. So go out there, have a good week, have a good weekend, be good to each other, share your love around, smile a lot, hold yourself up tall, pull your shoulders back, and kick the ass out of this effing world. Do some good shit. All right, people. Peace out.